Hello, I'm Johnny Lewis. Thank you for watching my video related to the case study from Module 13, When a Student's Rights Are Wronged. The case summary, this case study is about Nottingham High School. It's the only high school in Denver. Approximately 85% of the buildings for NHS are ADA compliant, but not all of them. Miguel Hernandez is a popular football player who is injured playing football, and he's required to use a wheelchair upon his return to school after this traumatic injury. His parents meet with Miss Guzman, who is a school guidance counselor, and tell him that tell her that he's going to need access to his classes for his wheelchair, and provide her with documentation for that. She apparently does not offer them a 504 or any other kind of evaluation or talk with them about any schedule change. But on Miguel's first day back to school, she calls him to the office and tells him that his schedule has to change because the biology class that he's been taking is in a building that's not compliant, that he can't get to in a wheelchair. Removing him from that biology class is a big deal because it's a class that he needs for the undergraduate school that he wants to go to in order to qualify for admission. So the legal and ethical issues related to this case study, removing Miguel from biology appears to only be about the fact that the school has failed to provide a plan or to have a plan for students to access buildings that are not ADA compliant. And this is a serious legal issue. ADA compliance requires that if schools can't upgrade their facilities, all of their facilities to ADA compliance, they have to be able to provide an alternate location or an alternate means of a student receiving the services from that facility. They can't just remove them or not give them access because they need to enter the building differently. Ms. Guzman should have suggested to the parents that Miguel be considered for a 504 plan. It's pretty likely that he would qualify. And this would also have invited a team of people who know Miguel into the process of evaluation, probably a school psychologist, a regular education teacher, an administrator, his parents, and this team would consider the possibility that it's possible they might consider him for an IEP, but it's very unlikely he would qualify based on what we're told in the case study. But there is a high likelihood that he would qualify for a 504 plan if that had been offered to his parents by Ms. Guzman. The fact that we aren't told that the building updates are more recent, and so one wonders how many other students who use wheelchairs or have other accessibility needs for building access have lost the classes that they could have benefited from or classes that they desired because of where those buildings were located. If it's possible that if this gets out about this accessibility issue for Miguel, that this could lead to further litigation. Ethically, the school culture appears to be unprepared for meeting the needs of students with access issues. Ms. Guzman doesn't appear to be trained in how to address the 504 evaluation. She doesn't communicate with the parents about his schedule change and placement. There's no existing plan in place for access to the buildings. The fact that Miguel is injured while playing for the school, it has the potential to become a legal issue for the district. If Miguel is injured because of coaching negligence or lack of appropriate care after his injury, malfunctioning equipment or facilities or improper maintenance, it could become a lawsuit in that regard. While the school means well in presenting the award to Miguel upon his return to school, if this is not like a typical football award or one that his peers would have received, if this is just about Miguel having a disability and giving him an award for that, it has the potential to devalue his humanity and to make his heroism simply about having a disability. This is an ethical issue, and it relates to the school's culture around students who have disabilities. In general, a synthesis of this case is that NHS seems to be lacking an inclusive culture as it relates to students to disability. When accessibility work had been completed on the facilities, there should have been a plan in place for students who would need access via the wheelchairs or other ways from the very beginning of when that happened so that they could be ADA compliant. The fact that no team has been developed to support Miguel in his transition back to school following this disability is also concerning. It appears that at best they sort of forgot about him because he's called in after his day starts to be told about his schedule change, or maybe intentionally Ms. Guzman tried to avoid having this conversation with his parents by just talking to Miguel. But it's very likely that Miguel is experiencing significant mental health or grief issues related to this transition in his mobility. And so he needs supports for his physical and mental health, and those haven't been addressed. And instead, there's the creation of more distress on the part of the school. So here's a synthesis of facts related to the people. As principal, I, Mr. Lewis, would need to try to intervene with the family and their attorney to make positive progress for Miguel without escalating this situation. Miguel needs social and emotional support as part of this mobility transition and the grief that he's likely experiencing. And instead, he's incurring more stress in his relationship with the school. Ms. Guzman has made a decision that is unfair to Miguel, and it's inappropriate that she alone is left to address this issue. And so while the school is kind of presenting these awards to him, which are, have likely got good intentions, but seeing wrong thinking, they at the same time haven't taken the time to ensure that he and other students get the educational placement that they deserve. This should have been a controlled procedure that was already in place as it relates to ADA compliance and evaluation. And so while it's unfair, and this can't all be placed on Ms. Guzman, this is a control issue for the school. And then synthesis of fact as it relates to people, as it relates to the school and the students. Student attitudes and social stigma could surround Miguel if he gets this special award for being in a wheelchair, and then he's immediately placed in a class that's less challenging upon his return to school. The faculty, given Miguel's popularity, their trust in the administration and their ability to make decisions could be effective. If the classroom for Miguel is changing locations, which probably needs to happen, that could become anger the biology teacher who's used to having their labs or whatever they need to have in their typical classroom. If the situation isn't resolved and becomes a lawsuit, it could affect the community's trust in the school district and the superintendent. The fact that the district doesn't appear to have had a solution in place, this could also affect the trust that parents have in the school, and it could raise alarms to other parents who have experienced this and maybe didn't realize what was happening. And so these are the programs that are really at play in this case study. The controls related to training and to identification of students with disabilities for 504 and special ed, controls related to ADA compliance and building access, and controls related to parent communication regarding scheduling and placement. As far as the conflict, the situation or decision being damaging to stakeholders, to the community, if this continues to escalate with the attorney to the point that further litigation is involved, it could definitely affect the resources that are available to students and faculty. We're already told that the district didn't have enough resources to continue updating the facility, so there's probably not a lot of resources to pay out a lawsuit settlement. And so it has the potential to affect them in that way. The lack of access affects any student who doesn't use steps to get into a building, and it can result in a lack of trust. People who have an important stake in the outcome are Miguel, primarily Miguel. I think it's important to say that Miguel should be the focus of this case study, not just kind of getting out of legal trouble, but doing what's best for Miguel. Miguel's parents, the principal, Ms. Guzman, other students with disabilities, the superintendent, and the biology teacher. And then have all relevant stakeholders been consulted? I think this is the primary issue, really. Ms. Guzman made this decision alone, it appears. The biology teacher hasn't been contacted to see if there are other options for access. The 504 team hasn't been developed. Parents were consulted about the schedule change. District specialists weren't consulted about this. And so that's a serious issue. There are some things that would be more helpful to know about the situation. We're told that Miguel's family says he won't need other accommodations. So it's possible maybe they were offered a 504 and refused it. That's not really clear. The legal situation surrounding his initial injury is unclear, and it would appear that there's no ADA plan in place, but it's possible that Ms. Guzman just ignores it or isn't aware of it because there's not been adequate training. And so with all those things in mind, there are enough details to make a decision. Most importantly, it should be clear to everyone involved that Miguel deserves to take the appropriate class for his academic placement, and that's the biology class. And so here are some options and consequences for response. Mr. Lewis or I could support Ms. Guzman's decision and tell the attorney there are no options for Miguel except for to change the schedule. That could be seen as supporting Ms. Guzman and eliminating the possibility of a biology teacher having to change classrooms. It could be seen as being good for morale. But this is likely going to result and this likely is going to result in it kind of moving down the road to be handled by district specialists or district attorneys even in the short term. But this does escalate the situation. It doesn't really do anything to address Miguel's needs or the needs of other students. It's more of a political response. It doesn't engage critical stakeholders. It doesn't deal with the 504 plan. And the longer this continues without a resolution, the greater the risk of litigation and the loss of support and resources for the district. And also, it's the longer that Miguel goes without having access to his class. Second option, I could invite the District 504 and Special Services Directors into the process so that we could find a legally compliant resolution that provides Miguel with equal access to a free, appropriate public education as soon as possible. Inviting specialists from the district or from the school into this conversation, it shows a commitment to resolution. It offers greater understanding of the legal requirements than probably either I or Ms. Guzman would have. And it ensures that we're looking at all of the resources we have to support Miguel instead of just doing the bare minimum. Potential consequences for this, any admission of a mistake could open the door to further litigation. Ms. Guzman and other staff, particularly the biology teacher, could view this as a lack of support. If it doesn't happen soon enough, it could lead to further escalation of the situation. And while it does solve the short-term problem, it doesn't deal with the issues related to school culture and ADA compliance. Then option 3, Mr. Lewis could hear the attorney's suggestion for a short-term solution, act on that immediately, and then begin working with Ms. Guzman, school psychologists, and other appropriate parties to create a plan for addressing the school's lack of preparation and training around access and culture related to students with disabilities. Inviting Ms. Guzman into the process acknowledges your trust in her instead of scolding her for something that's a bigger cultural issue. It prevents further legal and ethical actions, and it involves experts from the school and district who are most qualified to address the issues. Potential consequences are that inviting others to be part of this correction creates some vulnerability for Mr. Lewis as a leader. It's acknowledging that our school wasn't prepared, or maybe that I don't have all the answers. Ms. Guzman could take this as a lack of support, and the attorney's suggestion may be enough to eliminate the threat of litigation, but his lack of awareness of all of the solutions the district has could mean that Miguel doesn't get the best possible outcome. And so in evaluating these options, I think option 1 just kicks the can down the road and it's not focused on Miguel. Option 2 addresses the immediate concern most positively for Miguel, but it doesn't do anything to prevent the greater cultural issue and caring for other students. And then option 3 addresses the fear of litigation and the long-term response, but it doesn't offer the best supports to Miguel. So I think the best option is to combine options 2 and 3. In the short term, the best plan for Miguel is to involve as many stakeholders as possible to ensure he gets appropriate access to the class he needs to be successful. Likely, this is going to involve developing a support team and offering to carry out an evaluation to see if he qualifies for a 504, or less likely for special education services. Based on what we know, it doesn't sound like he would qualify for those. It would also require an immediate change in the location of the biology course to one that's accessible to Miguel. This could be a teacher moving to the library for a block. It could mean moving into an empty biology classroom during that block, whatever we need to do to make sure Miguel has access to that class. And then in the long term, it's vital that the school culture around access inclusion be reviewed and that there be controls put in place to ensure equal access for all students to the classroom and extracurricular activities. This could involve developing a team of specialists, technology, classroom teachers, administrators to create a policy for ADA compliance. It could involve Miguel and the Hernandez family potentially. It can provide a structure for maintaining the team and auditing the compliance plan annually in light of changes to building construction or classrooms.